Hi there. Let us continue on page 4 where we're going to work with the bullet points 3 and 4. So we are in the previous videos, 2 videos, we had correct outcome from every challenge, and that is technically every energetic challenge. And then we had balanced energy utilization. That's dot number 2, which we worked with in the last video, so previous video. And this one, we're going to work with correct clearing of fields and energetic influences. And in many ways, it's already explained, but just to really clarify it, so there is clarity among these 4 main levels that you need to improve, because that's kind of the 4 main levels within the individual spectrum of development to improve. And that is kind of important to understand that you have a spectrum of energy, you have a spectrum of knowledge, you have a spectrum of dynamics, you have a spectrum of everything. And the individual spectrum of your inner work follows the spectrum of your lower energy system and their division up into different fields. It follows the higher order energy system and their division into fields. So that is a spectrum. In each field has its own spectrum. So there's this constant vertical horizontal level where the spectrum is horizontal within the same field, going from lesser to higher. And then you have the vertical one, which go from lower to higher. Lesser is kind of horizontal. Lesser forms of energies going with what we could call outdated, failed energies that are going into evaporation, into the highest level on the horizontal normal developmental process, where it goes into the highest end, where it becomes very vibrant types of energies. That's kind of vibrational spectrum, where you can say, well, if you're in too high an end of the energies and you are existing in a low vibrant reality, you're going to burn up. So that is not the right usage of energy. So that individual spectrum of energies on the vibrational spectrum that is horizontal must be in alignment with the reality you are a part of, always being in balance between how much energy you're using and the reality setting that you are operating within, so that you always are in that balance point on the spectrum, so that you can go upwards using the vertical balance, where you can develop to improve the different levels on the progression spiral, where you again also are in balance with the vertical divisions of the different fields of reality you're part of. So this is again learning to not just be nailed on the cross, as it's said in the Bailey material, but really learn to change the cross from being a fixed one where you can't move around, and into becoming this literally a kind of a tool that you can use to navigate and clear out energy within reality, so to speak. You're literally doing the transfiguration where you are off the cross, and no matter where you are, you will adjust energetically correct to whatever experience you are having, where life stops kind of being suffering and becomes more like a challenge that you embark on with raised courage and understanding that however this is going to be, you will figure out a way to deal with it, because you have learned so much already that you kind of know, yeah, I might fail, but I'll learn something from it. I'll use the principles. I take it into my advantage. I'll make something useful of it, whatever that means. Understanding the different forms of three versions, 3 choices, 3 chances, if you like, that way, where you first work with the balance of alignment, where you kind of get that first attempt nailed in that pattern. Then in the second attempt, you get the opposition, that's the vibrational level. And in the third attempt, you get the polarity. And there you really nail it and work with the different mythologies that are in function when we talk energetic alignment or genetic alignment, which are kind of biological or matter-wise. And then you talk oppositions that are kind of vibrational types of energies on that spectrum of low and high. And then you have the polarity that kind of goes, and I know it's a little bit, most of you will think the polarity is kind of due to the yin and yang. You see it as a horizontal, but in a way it's actually the opposite. It's not horizontal, it's vertical, which you see in a magnetic field where you have north north and south. These are polarities. So that is how that direction goes. So just so you keep that in mind as well. So in the bullet point 3, the correct clearing of fields and energetic influences, it kind of goes with the prior two bullet points, prior to sections, and there are sub bullet points where you understand that every single energy unit within our reality field is at this point in a less energized state. So therefore, you have to economize with your energies according to this reality, and you will learn that the hard way as you grow in energy, and you understand that if you're energetically too strong, if you come out with too much light, let's put it this way, the alignment, opposition, and polarity forces will then, that's the counter forces, will come your way in one instance, and that battle will typically push you many layers down the regression spiral and typically into the underworld, as I did. There were reasons and purposes why I ended up there, down there, because that is where we end when we really fail many of the challenges and are not working correctly with energy. As I said, I have not come to the level I am with the knowledge I have because I have succeeded, but the contrary, because I have failed, and by that climbed my way back up, evaluated, and then figure out, okay, this was how I was supposed to do it. And you can then ask me, Randy, will you succeed now if you're countering whatever you're encountering? No, because each encounter, each challenge is always a little bit different. So it always takes these 3 times to succeed. And each time you can always ask yourself, am I actually succeeding? But this is where you just have to chop it down in pieces and say, yes, I succeeded on the alignment aspect. Yes, I succeeded to a large degree on the vibrational or oppositions because they came in balance and they dissolved and it disappeared out of my field. And yes, I did succeed to some degree on the polarity, but I can still do better, because success is not to be complete. Success is to be evolving and progress. And that means we're always in some sort of direction, and never success means you have reached the peak, but the peak is always moving a little bit higher, and the peak depends on where you are on the spectrum. So the progression pyramid is not one pyramid. It's actually many pyramids. It's many vertical peaks that you have to do, all depending on where you are on the spectrum or a horizontal plane of existence. So hence, as you also know, the Pillar Project, you are on the field that is developing you in the 1-7 pillar. Now you begin to understand the 1-7 pillar. That's the progression spiral upwards. At that point, we didn't have regression in that manner. We were just kind of in the same pillar until we nailed that one. So we went from 1 to the 7th dimension upwards in that spiral. That was the vertical upwards movement. And in that reality field, that was the horizontal plane, and working with all the different aspects of the progression spiral. The same with the second, 2, 8, 3, 9, 4, 10, 5, 11, and 6, 12. And now you understand why it's called pillars. And now you understand the depiction or the illustration I have made in the whole philosophy book, what that actually means. But since we're not working with the pillars right here, I have not pulled that in as an illustration, but you have it in the whole philosophy book. So that is also the understanding. So you might have remembrance. You remember how to work with energy in the perfect state, but our reality is in an imperfect state. So that takes a little bit more of us to do this energy work, which is also why it is very difficult to succeed in a system that is in a complete failure state. So that kind of sets a tone for how far we can push it as things are right now. But we'll still do our very best, but we must adjust to the world that we are part of. Not that we are to downsize ourselves and do less, but we need to energize and economize with our energy according to what we're dealing with. Thus, to keep our energetic balance, we must clear all energy fields we leave behind, because that's the way you economize. You can't have a tail of past lives hanging in your wake that are connected to your energy fields, because everything is in a less energized state. So you must really cut loose as much as you can. And this is what the Bailey talks about when we do quote unquote sacrifices. We let something go so other things can come in as we work our way up the ladder of whatever the ladder is within the horizontal plane and within the vertical plane that are in alignment with the horizontal plane that we are currently working on. And it is also important for us to get whatever energetic influences that comes our way, that merges with our field, that intersects our field or possess our field, or however you want to put it. You can kind of say there are things that can come from the vibrational plane of existence. There are things that can come from the physical plane of existence that kind of comes from beneath. That is the older racial grids that affects our biology or our organic vessel. And then there are also the things that can come from above or from the past or from the future. So that's where you have this whole complex, again, setup of this past, present, future, horizontal plane of existence, which I also illustrate in the whole philosophy book, and then high earth and low earth and the abyss beneath, that are kind of within our solar system. We are always in the middle of all of these different, influences that comes either from inner levels of reality or outer levels of reality, or above us or below us. So this is a condition that is a way of life. That's how it is on this planet. And that's why it's quite difficult also to do progression work in this reality, because everything around us and inside of us, above us, or below us, and past, present, and future, all of that is kind of organized in not letting you do the progression work. So this is also a circumstance of the progression work, and some of the challenges that many of you have difficulty in grasping, because you think that must be for the highest good of the many, that you are clearing yourself out. And it is. In our perfect world connected to the true worlds, it is. But compared to the ones that want to keep things status quo and under their control, absolutely not. You are about to leave their jurisdiction, and they're not interested in that. Okay, so that is where we need to energetic influences from other organic life forms, energetic encounters, and the like. What lingers on in any field is an access point into our energy system. And that is the difficulty in this work. And this is, I know many of you cannot adhere to that, and many of you cannot just go into complete isolation. And I also said to you, it doesn't matter, because you just need to have a bug on the wall, or a fly that passes through your energy field, or a speck of dust from some of the chemtrailing, or something in the water, or what have you. It doesn't matter. There is no places on this planet that are quote unquote safe. So the way we go around is to learn to scan ourselves. The way we go around is to learn the self-monitoring, always self-monitoring our energy system, so we keep the energetic integrity. And that's the next point. But this understanding that if you do choose to have people around you, well, they will affect you. Whatever they hold, that will come your way, especially if you do energy work and they don't. Because we talked about that the more you go up in energy, the more you begin to vibrate, the more you begin to radiate, because you will do that to some extent. The more you will draw into your field, the more you will affect what is around you, and the more will that activate. So that means you might have a partner that when you're dormant and you're inside the base program, and your partner is dormant inside the base program, and there you are in complete alignment with each other, and there's no problem, because you are vibrating on the same type of energy. But you begin to change your vibration. You begin to change the way your energy system works. You begin to clear out and become more light energy or what have you. And then polarity dynamics begins to kick in, and the opposition begins to kick in. And the first one that will respond to your different type of energy will be your partner. And that then things in your partner that were dormant before will then come to life. And if your partner does not do energy work, well, then you actually become harmful for that person, because you're forcing something upon him or her that he or she is not ready for and has not chosen. So this is why it's difficult to do when you are in a partnership, because unless your partner is working with you in this, you are technically harming him or her with your energy work, because you are pushing them into levels of reality they have not asked for. You're pushing them into a type of work they have not asked for. And by that, they will feel these changes. They will feel this uncomfortableness, if to use that word. They will feel uncomfortable. You will tamper with their safety zone, their comfort zone, and in that spark to life in them something that they don't want activated. And that gets activated, because it gets activated and sees that you are all this light, will then try to get energy from you to grow more and become stronger, and eventually your partner will literally turn into something out of a horror movie, energetically speaking. And I'm just saying this as it is. And you will, of course, have your ideas that you will be able to do it differently. And please prove me wrong. Please. There would be nothing more nice than that we could have a lot of nice and caring people around us and still doing the work. But so far, and history has shown this as well, not really been possible, which is why people eventually segregate themselves in communities. But as you also know, that has also a tendency to go wrong, because the moment we have group energy, there is an enormous amount of amplification going on, and we have all of these different energy fields that are being activated, and people are not really working correctly with this in the group energy, and therefore they have a tendency, unfortunately, to nullify each other. And we are seeing that exemplified as well in the Bailey material, and the Tibetan talks a lot about that in the books Discipleship in a New Age, book 1 and 2. So there's nothing simple about this energy work. And this is also something that you hear me say it. And since you have not seen it yet and not felt it yet, you will not really understand this. And you will have this tendency, which most people have, that you want to relate, you want to be around others that are doing this, or you want to keep the people that you love and care about around you. And you will then have to find that way, that balance of how long time can you actually be with a person? Is it a good idea you're in their home, or should you actually, when you visit that friend, should you be out in nature and then walk out in nature, so you align both of you with the energies of nature and then have a larger field to be part of? Other than if you're visiting your friend at his or her home, then you will influence the energies of that person's home. And that will linger on as you leave, and you will then be connected to that home and whatever's going on there, and that will automatically draw you down. Or if a person comes into your home and you're energetically high vibrant and you have changed the energies of your home, which is your expanded sphere, and then that person will be in that energy and activate on all levels that you are working on, and that person will then leave your home and feel really shit, and then eventually kind of dread visiting you, because it makes them feel so uncomfortable, because a lot of stuff is happening. They love you, but they hate being around you, to put it that way. So this is also a consequence of this work. And this is where the psychological challenge in this comes in, as in kind of, perhaps you should only be around that person for so long. As in kind of, I have noticed that most of even though I go down in energy and around base program people, normally 1 hour, that's kind of that's kind of where you kind of the breaking point where my energy then comes, that has summed up or built up to such a degree that if I continue after that 1 hour, then things will happen. Then things will begin come my way. Then the parasites will begin to move around in the other person. So there are this, how long can you be around people before you activate them or amplify what they hold in their fields that will then go in alignment with what you have activated, that will go into opposition of what you are vibrating on, that will go into polarity of what you have achieved in your mental field. So this is where these three levels of energies and dynamics they can be used for good, but if you are around a person that is not doing this work, then they will be used for ill. they will become a counterforce to you. And this you must clear out. You must also clear out, even though you don't get to the point where you activate, you will still have an imprint of what you have been around in your field, and you need to scan yourself and clean that out as quickly as possible so that you are not, and there is no access point from whatever you have been around and into your field, because if you're not on top of that one, it will grow and connect you energetically to whatever has been in your field or whatever you have been in contact with, whether it's only energetic or it's also actively, physically active, actual physical contact. Sorry about that. So the last point is self-monitoring, self-scanning, and upholding energetic integrity. And I kind of already explained it in clearing of the fields and energetic influences. And correct clearing is to make it neutral. So whatever you've been in contact with, you must align yourself with your own system constantly. And that is the 2 bullet points. To keep the highest purity rate. That is, in essence, to be aligned with our own energy system, constantly being centered in our own energy system, and not displaying the energies of outer or inner influences, as I explained just a few minutes ago. We must be diligent in our self-observances of the energetic state of our energy system, our organic vessel, and general energetic condition. So that is kind of always there's this, on the physical level, we will have physical pains, and we need to discern what that is and where that comes from. Especially, of course, if you have crystallized, that can show up as illness. But if you are generally in good health and you're doing this work, then if you suddenly get rashes, or you get pain, or you get headache, or you get nausea, or you get whatever, it just comes out of the blue, that is 99% of the time an energetic entity that has gained so much momentum in your field because you've not been observant of it, that is now beginning to chew its way through your energies, and that you feel as a physical pain or a stab in the side, or headaches, or what have you, or weird skin rashes. Typically for me, if I have gotten rid of a kind of a contaminated inclusion, put it that way, from the racial grids, even though I remove it and I get rid of it, I clear it, the remnant energies of it will always be some sort of weird skin rash. It can also show itself in an oversensitive nervous system, or it can come up in different kinds of, as I said, many of the contaminated levels of the older racial grids create disease-like symptoms such as fever, muscle pain, weird skin rashes, and the like. That kind of goes with what we call also flu symptoms, to put it that way. Things that are centered around the head and the throat are typically linked to the 5th dimension, as you know from the older energy illustrations I have made about the energy system and how the mental field, it goes from the throat and upwards. So that is kind of that area. And the vibrational or emotional field is kind of the whole torso and that area. And that goes with what we call the LPF2, or the vibrational field. So whatever is of the artificial 4th dimension is typically centered around the heart, chest, arms, all of the organs. And that layer, the underworld, is typically centered around the genitals and the abdominal, nausea kind of thing. And whatever is in the 5th dimension around the head and the shoulders and down the spine, by the way, because the central nervous system. So this is also the understanding of kind of how the organs are connected to the different fields and how they will be affected by it. If I have worked with oppositions or 4th dimensional energies or settler energies or insectoids from the LPF2 area or avians, on that level, after clearing out these energetic parasites, and excuse me being from very upfront here and very straightforward with what I'm saying here, is literally then I have to poop a lot. I'm seriously pooping a lot, more than what normal people can put out in the toilet. But that's because that's the emotional stuff that is so close to the physical plane of existence that once I've cleared it out energetically, it sinks into the evaporation state that then is processed through my intestines and through the whole stomach area and processed out and comes out as literal, what we call waste that can then be flushed out with water. But there are still energetic things connected to it. So if you have had that, make sure you clean out your toilet, literally, not just physically, but energetically. What is gone into the toilet can link up to elemental beings and underworld creatures, which you will then make sure has not grown up and are literally energetically coming up through the toilet with its long what kind of like a squid arms that are coming up literally from the toilet, from the water in the toilet. But I'm just saying, so this is how life can become quite interesting when we are becoming energetically observant and understand that upholding energetic integrity is not just in our own fields, but also in our home, because our home will become slightly alive as we learn to work with more of the different energies of our fields. And as we clean more and more this out, we will then connect to the reality on the similar level and go into alignment, opposition, and polarity of the reality field itself. And that is where all of these, that's on the even higher layers, but that is where we'll begin to work with elemental beings and ancient creatures and what have you from that are also part of the racial grids and part of our planet itself, because our planet itself has huge fields of distortions that are full of all sorts of entities, which will come our way as we go beyond our personal sphere and go beyond the fear of other people, the field of other people, the sphere of other people. We kind of have our personal arena to deal with first, and then we work with how we influence and interact with others. And once we have cleared these two layers, then we go into the reality and the planetary settings, and that's where things get really interesting in our energy work, to put it mildly. So that is kind of what we do. We must be diligent in our self-observances of the energetic state of our energy system, organic vessel, and general energetic condition, because of what I said here, these three different layers. I will return to this later on in the next set of courses, where one of the last courses, or the one with the mental field, the more advanced level of the mental field, I go into this understanding of self, others, and reality, and how these different levels of our energy work, aside from the division of the distortion fields, are how you can kind of say on this, the layer of your own constitution, you work with the distortion fields on the mental and the emotional and the biofields, all 7 layers that kind of, I know I put 8 layers in the emotional field, but technically it's 7, 7, 7. So you have 21 different levels, just to make it easier. There can be more or less, all depending on your genetics. And then you are going into the work with yourself in correspondence or interacting with others, which I just touched ground with here, where you then will understand that what you have activated will activate in others in the order of alignment, opposition, or polarity. And that you will have to work through, again, biofield, alignment, opposition, vibrational field, polarity, mental field. Okay. So that is kind of where you'll learn to work with this. And as you work with others, for instance, if we talk the opposition, that is where you have the psychological work with others. The polarity goes a little bit more on the mental plane, and that goes into the 5th dimension. So that will not be felt much, but that will be played out in opposition in the emotional spectrum, within the emotional spectrum. That's where some really interesting and very unpleasant encounters can come and play with other people. But that is something you'll learn to deal with as well. And then once you are have learned the lessons there, you cleared out your own fields in that, in connection to that level of your continued progression work, you will then expand into the planetary field, where you will again have alignment, opposition, polarity with whatever whatever entities that are there, of whatever divisions our reality is divided into. And I just gave you an overview of that one. That's the first one, the entire LP-of-1 field. And then actually you will go out to the stellar communities, and then you'll go out to the galactic, and then you'll go out to the universal. So you see, there's enough, there's enough to work with. The 1-7 pillar is personal, 2-8 is others, 3-9 is reality, 4-10 is stellar, 5-11 is what we call galactic, and 6-12 is universal. So that's the pillar project and how that was built up with these different concentric circles that you expand in your perception sphere and your energy system. So the psychic energetic integrity is important to maintain our focus and remain on the timelines that are beneficial to our progression work, and not the antagonistic ones we so easily are shifted into due to inner or outer influences. And I think I have here outlined to the best of my abilities on a general level that this work is not easy, and this work is not simple, and it has so many sub-layers to it and so many different aspects of it that this work should not be taken lightly. And I know when you just do the basic psychology work and you do that and you get too eager and you work too hard or too quick, or you push it too quick, too far too quickly, and you think this is just easy peasy and it's similar to the other spiritual type of work you have done, you will then discover that this is not that. First and foremost, because our reality has changed. We have suddenly dark forces we didn't have 5 years ago. We suddenly have different other dimensional systems we didn't have 4 or 5 years ago. So things have expanded. Our reality field and what we can perceive there has expanded, that are part of what is coming our way from the future, so to speak. And at the same time, we also have all the issues of the old world order and the past and what they were doing here. And then we have all of that kind of conjuncts in the now, and what we're dealing with not only on the inner levels of reality, but also on the outer levels of reality now, with the pandemic and with the whatever, the 100-year cycles that are going on, the climate crisis, the different ways humans are around each other now, the virtual reality, the AI. It's so enormously complex now. So the simplicity of the work I, in a way, outline in the basic psychology material, or the basic ideas that are a part of the basic psychology courses in the whole academy, where you begin with the energy work and you go into the whole completed class 1 and 2, and the future human project courses 1 to 4, and the new grand cycle transition material, as well as going into the whole the extractions of the whole integration class 5 and the whole integration class 6. There you get more further up to where we are now. But there we are still very much enveloped in the old world order energies. And there was a certain system to things. And that has changed now. So this is why you remember from the whole advanced classes 1 to 4, where I talk about being able to work in chaos, being able to constantly align and stand in the center point, no matter what's happening around us, literally just being able to constantly balance ourselves in whatever comes our way, to constantly find our center point where we stand aligned with what we truly are in our own energy system, whatever that means at that point in time, because that will change as well. But we can only align with who and what we think we are right now, and work from that center point and deal with whatever comes our way from that level of our progression work, where we have reached in our clearing work, and what we have abilities to do according to our energy system and whatever we have got left of viable genetics. We can't ask more of ourselves than where we actually are. And that's why I want you to not set the highest goal that you want to reach the 6th dimension and then work for that one, because it's like you have 5 dimensions before that, just to put it in a simplistic way, that you have to nail first. So why not just say whatever comes your way in the now, you will handle to perfection. And then just take it as a little bit laissez-faire, as in kind of I'll work with what's in the now. I'll work what will come my way in the now, and I'll make that as optimized as possible, and then trust that this constant step-by-step correctness and the correct energy usage and the correct balanced energy that is being met all the time in the balance of these different spectra, of these different polarities, of these different oppositions, or what have you, constantly reach that point where you fall back in balance, and fall back is here meant as a positive thing, that you're not on the right or the left or up or down or whatever, or all over the place, but constantly get back into balance, constantly achieve a purified level, constantly keep yourself alignment with the principles and be an honorable person, constantly monitoring yourself, constantly be on your toes of all the time. Keep yourself in as a pristine state as you can, as is possible in that moment in time. Not what you envision it to be, but what you achieve in every encounter you have in whatever moment you exist. Whether you're asleep or you're awake or you poop or you bathe or you walk in nature, or you are around other people, or you're on your own, there's a bug in your living room, or you're cooking your food, or you're preparing your food, or you're clearing your food, or you're eating your food. Always be in that. It's a little bit like kind of what is behind the idea of Zen. Always be mindful in whatever's going on. Always assess the situation. Always seek to optimize it energetically, not just fall behind. Even when you relax, you can do energy work. You can find the balance point, the harmony in relaxing by clearing out first and then relax afterwards. Or just keep yourself in an energetic state where you there in that harmony can rest and rest assured that you have achieved what you need to achieve. And if there's something, the way you deal with it, you don't postpone it, you don't push it for tomorrow, you don't say mañana, you don't just let it slide, you don't let it grow, you don't let it take control of you. You're always in control of yourself and your surroundings. And you're always in control in your behavior when you're around others. And you're always in control of how you correspond and interact with the reality energies, whether it's within the frequency spectrum or it is the energies beyond, whether they're below or above or past, present, or future. So that you are constantly keeping yourself in a bubble of light, but you are creating that light by transforming energy, not by visualizing a bubble of light, because that doesn't help, but you are creating that energy by constantly transforming and interacting in the correct manner with whatever comes your way. So that is kind of how you keep the energetic balance. And as I keep telling all of you in the sessions, I make it sound easy, but that's because I have learned how to do it and I'm explaining how the dynamics work. But it is not easy. This is probably the most difficult things you will ever have to learn. And remember, I have made so many mistakes in this, and it is through this trial and error and repetitive, brave, constant eagerness and readiness to learn how to work with these energies. I have never given up. I can have times where I kind of sit a little bit and say, what the fuck is the point of all of this? But I always come back. I always push on. I always push again and do it again. And yes, then in earlier stages when I went through some of the really, really hard phases of the work, I could sit down and cry for a while. I could sit down and feel, oh, this is a little bit over the top, isn't it? But then I also understood, yeah, this is just parasites. This is just interference. This is to make me lose my Geist, to lose my bravery, to make me give up, to make me step down, to make me fall back, to make me do whatever. And they are not going to get the better of me. I'm not going to let them win. Because no matter whatever happens, I'll still do my very best, because that's how I feel aligned with myself. That I always do my very best. no matter whatever comes my way. And I always try to make it come into some sort of harmony. I'm this kind of person that takes the litter on the street, that makes my surroundings look nice, that whatever I come into a room and if there is a mess there, I clean it up naturally because I like things to be in harmony. I like things to be in order. I like things to look nice. I like things to be beautiful. That's such a strong energy in me. So whatever comes my way, I try to use the fourth ray to transform it into beauty, to transform it into harmony, to lift whatever's going on into balance, where that balance point will naturally create harmony. And that understanding, that is the signature of being a true human, as the Bene material also says. This is the human kingdom. That is what is the goal of the human kingdom, to create harmony, to create balance, to transform energy into beauty. That is what we're here to do. That is the true essence of the progression work. And that is what the energetic balance will give you when you do it correctly. You will feel it in your heart field, and you will feel it in your brain, and you will feel it in your body as a harmony, as something, yes, this feels right. Not good, because that's a desire, but this feels right. And this is something you will experience when you do the energy work correctly. Once you reach that balance, just for that short minute in time, there's just that little nodal point in the big pattern. But if you do it correctly, you will feel that harmony. You will feel the order. You'll feel the balance. You will feel the harmony, because that's the correct energy on the progression path, as you remember from the earlier material in the whole basic psychology courses, where I talk about reaching the order, the balance, and the harmony, because that is a key signature of the progressive humans. Thank you.